Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like. Ballerina, which takes place between 3 and 4 of the John Wick series, has a lot of good action. The action sequences still live up to the franchise. However, it's kind of boring. The story isn't interesting. And people might argue, like, well, John Wick doesn't really have a story either. Yes, the story of the John Wick film series is very simple. Man who wants revenge because the last thing his dying wife gave him was a puppy, and the puppy was taken away from him. So when you say it out loud, it sounds really stupid, right? It just says like, what, this guy went on a killing spree because his dog died. But it wasn't just a dog, it was a dog his wife gave him. And it still is pretty ridiculous to think about. But the execution of the story and the escalating stakes because he went on a killing spree for a puppy that was given to him by his dying wife. We're kind of introduced to this criminal world that has extreme consequences. It's a criminal world with rules and laws. And if you break those rules or those laws, you are essentially a fugitive. You are a criminal in the criminal world. So aside from the silliness of a man going on a killing spree over a puppy, we get to witness a world we had not seen before. This extremely organized criminal underground world. There's been many criminal underground worlds in different movies, but none were explored the way they were in the John Wick film. In Ballerina, they really wanted to create a reason for the audience to get behind the ballerina. Her name is Eve, played by Ana de Armas. But it was really difficult to care about her revenge story. Not that it was bad. The plot here and the material they wrote on paper would have been a really great story told on film. For some reason, it just didn't work for me. And I feel like the audience in the theater I was sitting with wasn't having the greatest time either. One thing that makes it very difficult is the kids that are cast in this film. They have like kids to kind of pull at your heartstrings to kind of get you to buy into this emotional purpose of the revenge. But casting kids to really pull off emotional dark roles, it's very difficult because the kids, you gotta be like a Dakota Fanning in War of the Worlds when she was with Tom Cruise. She is a really skilled actress. It's very difficult to find kid actors who are that skilled to can portray a believable amount of emotion. It's just more difficult for children to do that. So I think in casting kids to kind of help sell the emotional pull of this film, that's what kind of killed it. The things I really did like about the film though is, I don't remember them telling this in the other John Wick films, but the coins that the golden coins that they use in exchange as it's kind of the underground criminal currency. One side kind of represents death and the other side represents not life, but opportunity. So they kind of explained that in this film, which I thought was kind of cool for the coin. I was like, oh, I actually have 2 of those coins. They're real gold. It's like a real gold bullion coin. And just looking at each side is kind of, you just appreciate craftsmanship of the coin. But to know the purpose behind the coins, other than the kind of vague multiple purposes they use it for throughout the John Wick series, that little bit of information they give you in Ballerina was pretty cool. Another cool thing about the film was the Terran Tactical branding on all the weapons. Man, that guy must be making a nice little chunk of change for the branding. Anyways, I'm gonna get into spoilers, so you got 10 seconds after this ad to avoid any spoilers. The Stars and Stripes Freedom Deck ships exclusively in the United States. Available on eBay and Etsy, link in the description below. Alright, so in Ballerina, we're introduced to Eve when she's a child. Her father is trying to protect her from a violent group of people. It's very John Wick in father form. However, he becomes a casualty when he's protecting her. From here, Winston takes Eve and connects her with the Ruska Roma family, which is the John Wick family. It is there she is given the choice to accept this new family, which she does. Through this, we kind of get a montage of her training. The training, I felt like wasn't really that interesting. I get it, they have to show you how she becomes a skilled assassin. And to be honest, I don't know how, narratively, I don't know any other way I would have gone about it either. I'm kind of just walking out of the theater fresh in my mind. So if I was writing this story, I would need more time to think how I would make a more interesting assassin arc for her to catch everybody up to speed on her skills. The one thing though that was kind of dumb, I don't know any other word to put it for, was when she's training in the Sambo Jiu-Jitsu grappling MMA on the mat. She's losing to this guy because obviously he's bigger and stronger than her, and she has this moment where she's like, well, I can't beat him. He's bigger than me and he's stronger than me, which is obviously, yes, he's bigger, he's stronger. And the woman that's training her is like, you have to fight like a girl. You have to fight unfair, basically, like kick him in the balls, gouge, do things that are unfair, which is like, yeah, in a street fight, or if you're an assassin, if you're just in a fight that's not sanctioned, basically, there's no one to tell you. There's no referee to be like, hey, that's fair, and hey, that's not. That applies to everybody, including the man. So when she said that, fight like a girl, like fight unfair, fight dirty. Well, this would also apply to the man. This would apply to the assassin world in general. No one is going to fight fair unless you kind of get like, there's those moments in John Wick, like when he fights the Japanese assassin, but they kind of have a respectable fight. But that's also because they're fans of John Wick as the assassin. It's kind of funny because they're like assassins, but they're also assassin fanboys of John Wick because he has such a body of work that is admired throughout the criminal kingdom. So there's some instances where it makes sense that two extremely skilled fighters would have respect for each other and say, you know what, I know we fight dirty in the criminal world, but because I respect you as a fellow criminal colleague and we are now up against each other, I'm gonna have a respectable fight with you. So like little moments like that, they stand out in the films too. It's just, there's times where it works. You have to really create the moment. It has to narratively earn itself to be a special fight in the film. Anyways, ballerina Eve, she goes through a series of training to eventually a point she has her final test, and her final test is to kill another ballerina, another assassin, a ballerina who's kind of betrayed the family. And she even leaves her with a seed in the back of her head like, I'm you in 10 years. Like basically, if they can kill me, they will also kill you. Anyways, it's after this choice that she has her first encounter with John Wick. So this moment is happening parallel to John Wick 3. Anyways, from here, the ballerina asks the boogeyman for a little bit of advice, to which he says, you have the choice, basically. Everything that kind of happens is really up to you. So the ballerina chooses to live this life as an assassin. We see her do a couple of jobs. The action, like I said, is still very well choreographed, but because the stakes and the narrative are less involved and a lot of the action that's leading up to the point where she eventually finds who she's looking for, these people that killed her father, she wants revenge. The action's not really interesting because it doesn't really narratively drive you anywhere. There's no like direction. It's kind of just like, here's action, I hope you're entertained. But eventually she does a job and it leads her to a mark on one of the men, which she recognized as a child. And she says, who is this? Because I saw this as a kid. Take me to the final boss, basically. And basically the mark is from this 1,000-year-old cult of killers who just hunt for sport, which is kind of crazy to think about because they're not just assassins, they're just killing for sport. Like how lucrative would that be as a business? But anyways, as she's searching for information to find this cult, like where can I get to the head honcho of the cult, she encounters Daryl Davis. I think that's his name, the Walking Dead guy. I forget it. If Norman Reed, that's his real name. Sorry, Daryl Davis. She encounters Norman Reed, who's kind of having a similar situation to her when she was a child, only it's Norman Reed and his daughter, I guess. I don't know. They don't look related at all. She's like, no, it's Norman Reed and his daughter, I guess. We'll go with that. But anyways, they try to give you this, another sympathy note here where you're supposed to feel narratively connected to Norman Reedus and his daughter the way you're supposed to feel connected to Eve and her father earlier in the film. So they're trying to do this parallel thing like, huh, remember this from earlier in the film? This is where you're supposed to care. But like I said, the kid, the actor who's playing Norman Reedus's kid, she's not good. So it kind of takes you out of it. Anyways, the action escalates. The ballerina Eve, she eventually gets to the head honcho, the final boss of the 1,000-year-old killer cult. And it is there that she has this crazy twist reveal that her sister's still there. And this is the first time she sees her sister and since her childhood. And they save the day. They kill the cult boss, who this cult has been around for 1,000 years. And somehow now in one night they've been taken out. And we do get a moment because the ballerina Eve, she's betraying the orders of the Ruska Roma family. They're like, the mother's like, don't go and challenge the killer cult. And she was like, I'm gonna do it. And she's like, okay, I guess I have to send John Wick to stop you. And then so we get John Wick, who kind of shows up to stop her, but then kind of teams up with her. And when John Wick shows up, you know, I do appreciate though that John Wick's presence in the film was very minimal. Not that I don't like John Wick, it's just that this film is supposed to stand on its own without having to rely on the back of John Wick, even though it's ballerina from the world of John Wick. But I think they used him for the perfect amount of time because it's like, oh, you get John Wick, cool, we like John Wick, but also let this movie have an opportunity to kind of stand on its own. Which again, I don't hate the movie, but I wouldn't recommend it. Anyways, in the end, they kind of set up, because the ballerina Eve, she betrayed the orders. At the end of the film, it's kind of like John Wick, where there's a hit for her now, like the way there was a hit for John Wick. It seems like they're just trying to parallel too much of the story from John Wick instead of kind of giving the ballerina a more original narrative. Like, to be honest, I kind of think it would just be more interesting if they just gave the ballerina an extremely difficult hit instead of her just like mimicking the John Wick revenge story. What if they just gave the ballerina like an extreme challenge as an assassin, and then narratively you kind of just build her up to this moment where when you get to the final boss of this incredible challenge, hopefully the story will have built up in a way where you're confident in her skills, but the challenge is also great. So you as the audience can be rooting for her, but also worried for her. And she wasn't like a Mary Sue in the film. She was having difficulty throughout all these combats. So it was cool to see the grit of her perseverance, but the film still falls flat for me. I don't know how to explain it. When it comes to John Wick, I know that I've been hearing they're going to make a John Wick 5, which already just based on the ending of 4, it's like, please, we love the John Wick films 1 through 4. They're great. But that 4th film seems like it just set up a nice ending. Like, can things just end? Can we ever just have a film series end? You don't have to try to milk it until you have an anorexic cow, okay? Sometimes it's fine to just let a beloved character retire through death. But anyways, I wonder if the John Wick 5 film is going to have some kind of connection with Ballerina. Like, is this going to be a film? Are these going to be parallel films where both characters are fighting the consequences of what happened in the end of Ballerina? I don't know. Either way, I'm not really excited for it. I'm actually not excited for it. I still love the John Wick films 1 through 4. I'll rewatch those forever. Ballerina kind of feels, because it takes place between 3 and 4, it kind of feels like you're tripping while you're walking. You're taking 4 steps, and in between step 3 and 4 you tripped a little bit, but you still made it to 4. That's kind of what Ballerina feels like to me. I don't know if that analogy makes sense, because I kind of just made it up right now, but it's not even an analogy. It's like I don't know what to call it. Anyways, did you watch Ballerina? Are you as disappointed as me? Like I said, the action is good, but everything else sucks. Support American craftsmanship when you buy the Stars and Stripes Freedom Deck. From coast to coast, only available in the USA. Available from La Casa Loca on eBay and Etsy. For more uneducated, expert analysis on film and cinema and the creative field in general, follow us on Twitter @Ghettoplex_MP4, on Instagram @Ghettoplex.mp4, and subscribe to us on YouTube @Ghettoplex.